Welcome to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast.
I believe that introverts actually make the best salespeople, the best networkers, the best public speakers, the best leaders. I spend my life trying to help introverts realize they're not second-class citizens. Their path to success is just different to that of an extrovert. I've seen people that we've helped get their messaging right in a networking room that have then gone on to get headhunted and get six-figure increases in salary just because they're getting their message correct. Everyone's got unique talents, unique skills, unique past backgrounds that perfectly qualify them to provide even more value to a specific demographic that they're passionate about.
That's Matthew Pollard, or Pollard if you're Australian, also known as the Rapid Growth Guy. He's worked with thousands of businesses around the world and is responsible for launching 5 $0 to $1 million businesses. He particularly loves helping introverts with his books, programs, and podcasts such as The Introvert's Edge. So you'll learn 1, the best way to answer, so what do you do? 2, the 2 relationships that transform your network. And 3, the simple trick to get people interested in your expertise. I'm Pete Makaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Matthew.
Matthew, welcome.
Mate, I'm ecstatic to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you. I want to know, you're the rapid growth guy. So why are we writing a book called The Introvert's Edge to Networking?
It's funny, right? People would assume that rapid growth, sales success, networking success is kind of an oxymoron with the concept of introversion. And while a lot of people think that, I mean, it's totally not true. I mean, let's confront the stigma head on for a second. Most people think that introverts are terrible at small talk, yet David Letterman and Oprah Winfrey are introverted. So that makes no sense. And then they're like, oh yeah, but we definitely can't sell. Well, Zig Ziglar, the most well-known sales trainer on the planet, who's no longer with us, but him and his son, Tom Ziglar, are very introverted. And then you've got, oh, well, okay, if we can sell and we can do small talk, networking's the thing we definitely can't do. Well, that's also not true. Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI, the world's largest networking group, is an introvert as well. So I'm known as the rapid growth guy because, I've been responsible for 5 multi-million-dollar success stories, and I help organizations, predominantly introverted small business owners, obtain rapid growth in their business because they get stuck in this endless hamster wheel of struggling to find interested people, trying to set themselves apart, trying to make the sale, and always fighting on price. But also corporate executives, they have no idea how to sell their value. And I find that the same methodology applies for people to create rapid growth in their careers as well. So that's how I got the name. But I spend my life trying to help introverts realize they're not second-class citizens. Their path to success is just different to that of an extrovert.
Beautiful. All right. Well, could you perhaps share a tale that lays it out in terms of what's at stake for introverts and whether they are networking well or not so well?
Well, I think for a lot of people, there's that old adage that if people don't know your value, then it doesn't matter how much you know, you're never going to succeed in a career, right? So your network is directly related to your net worth. I think that's changing a lot in the digital forum. But the truth is that I'm always pushing people to learn how to articulate their value in the networking room, whether they're a career professional, whether they're an executive, whether they're just getting started in a career right through, and more especially for small business owners. Because if you can't articulate your value when somebody's politely listening to you in a room for 2.5 minutes, you've just got no chance online. And because people then give you fractions of a second. And I've seen people that we've helped get their messaging right in a networking room that have then gone on to get headhunted and get 6-figure increases in salary just because they're getting their message correct. But without that in the room validation, it doesn't work.
Well, let's double click on that for a moment. 6-figure increases in salary. That's lovely. So if it's going from 125,000 to 225,000, for example, near doubling, all based upon effectively having a good 2-minute exchange with somebody?
This ideology actually started in the small business space. And what was funny is I actually had a lady that read my book. She reached out to me and she was a small business owner at the time. And she said she was trying to get a corporate job. And I actually responded with, that's not what I do. And she got upset with me. And she literally said, look, I know your ideology will work for corporations. And because there aren't many authors in the introverted space, I just believe that you can help me. And she said, isn't really, I'm just trying to get one customer, right? One corporation to hire me. And I went, I mean, that's kind of true. I said, but I can't give you my online program. We'd have to work one-on-one. I'm willing to give it a shot if you're up for it. And what was really interesting is we applied the methodology. And what I always focus on is you need to know the niche that you're going after. And so for her, what we helped her realize was her real love was education technology. So we got her to focus on education technology. We created a message for her, and she actually got a job that paid $180,000. But the one specifically I was talking about was another gentleman that we worked with around the same time. And he was going to start his own business. And then he actually got hit by Hurricane Katrina out in Texas. And I was like, mate, you've got scarcity in your life and uncertainty everywhere. Like, you shouldn't be starting your own business now. And he said, but I want to start my own business. I don't want to work. He was working for a large bank. And he said, I'm traveling 250 days a year. And on top of that, I've got to deal with all this stuff back home. And I feel like I'm always dealing with the same problem over and over. And I want to deal with lots of different types of clients. And I said, I don't think you want to go and start your own business. I think that what you really want to do is work with an organization that has lots of business units. Then you can have the safety and security of an employment job, but you can still work in lots of different business units and apply your ideology. But let's understand what your ideology is. And what we realized is what he loved to do was create customer-centric moments that created organizational growth, right? So create that special contact moment that allowed that person that had that special contact to then share the praise with other people that created referrals and become a more stickier customer and buy more stuff. So I said, what I believe you specialize in is creating these customer-centric moments, which then creates a growth velocity for the organization that you work with. But you don't need to work in your own business to do that. You can do that in a corporation. But what we need to do is call you something like, and I came up with the term, the velocity architect. And I said, call yourself the velocity architect. Don't call yourself a marketer. Because when you say you're a marketer, they put you in a box with everybody else. And while that may be what you need to do to get your first job, the people that go from middle to top level management, they need to separate themselves. They've got to have something unique. So we called him the velocity architect. We created the three major problems that most organizations have that where they struggle to create customer velocity because they don't create these customer-centric moments. And funnily enough, he went for an interview with an energy company that had multiple business units. And it was a six-figure job, but it was low six figures. And, I think it was about $150,000, $190,000 job. And when he went for the interview, he introduced himself as the velocity architect. He talked about these customer-centric engagements, and he learned how to tell stories because a lot of people try to educate on their value, and stories work far better. But once he did that, the person that he was doing the interview with said, look, you're overqualified for this job, but my CEO needs to meet you. And they actually created a job for him that actually paid. It was over 100,000. It was in the 200s more than the job he was applying for. Because what you got to understand in today's world, people are looking, and I'm not talking about low-level jobs. I'm talking about medium to high-level jobs. They are looking for people that have ideologies that give their organizations value, and they'll create jobs for you. They'll headhunt people that have unique points of view. And in today's digital world, if you can learn how to articulate that clearly and concisely in a networking room, you can leverage that online and you'll find yourself getting headhunted. You'll be able to leverage that message online and have people all over the world trying to recruit you.
Matthew, this is an intriguing thesis. You've got some juicy case studies and examples. Do you have any other compelling evidence that suggests that, in fact, this unique point of view that you have about unique points of view is dead on true?
The truth is that when you're looking to go to a networking room, and if you're a small business owner listening to this, you should never be going to a networking room to try and find clients. I know you think that that's what you need, but for me, finding another client is the wrong direction to go. My belief is that finding what I would call momentum partners in champion relationships are where the power is. And for career, people listening that have got jobs, this is just as powerful for you. Because if you go to a networking room and you're looking for that next person that's going to hire you, well, if you're not looking for a job right now, it's going to convince you that you don't need to be networking. But then on top of that, the biggest relationships that I have found useful in everything that you do, firstly, momentum partners, people that believe in what you do and are willing to talk to other people about it, and you believe in what they do. And because of that, this ideology works much more effectively. Because if I said, oh, you're looking for a marketing person or a senior marketing level position, you need to talk to this person. It's like, oh, I've already got a few people, or get them to submit their resume. As opposed to, oh my gosh, you need to speak to the velocity architect. All of a sudden, this person is different and unique. They stand out. You're at least willing to entertain having a dialogue with them. And then the next thing is this concept that I came up with, which was a champion relationship, which is somebody that is far more advanced than you, that's willing to share your praises and willing to endorse your work and give it credibility. Because if you're the velocity architect and you've got other people talking about what you do and why it's amazing that are highly credible, and you've networked to find those people, then those people will allow you to constantly network and create greater and greater success. But what I really want to do is take a step back for a second and imagine that I'm a brand new person. I've never had a job before, and I'm moving into just a customer service role. I'm just looking for a customer service role. If I applied for every customer service role under the sun, then I've got to have the best resume. I've got to interview really well. I've got to say all the right things. I'm relying on a lot of luck to get that job. And especially if I'm introverted. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe that introverts actually make the best salespeople, the best networkers, the best public speakers, the best leaders. But if I didn't believe that and I didn't plan and prepare, which introverts are great at, but most often they prepare and plan in the wrong way, I might go in and bumble my way through that interview and hope that they can see the raw value in me to hire me. But if I instead said, you know what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to focus on my passion. Maybe I'm really passionate about manufacturing organizations and changing customer service in a manufacturing business. Well, then maybe I'll only go for manufacturing-based interviews. And because of that, I can talk about my passion for the manufacturing space. I can talk about the mission that I'm on to transform the space. I can do more research to understand it more, and it makes me more relevant and more employable to that organization. And that is why it allows you to create far more success. And, this isn't new stuff. I mean, if you say, I'm a person that's trying to get a client and I'm a small business owner, well, if you niche down, you're, of course, going to be seen as far more likely the only logical choice. And if you've got a message that resonates to that marketplace, of course, they're going to be willing to pay you as a premium. Well, why is that different for a corporate job? It's not different. The truth is, if they never heard of you, then separating yourself from the pack is the only thing that's going to make sure you're in the top 3 candidates to get that second interview. And that is why I recommend that you do this, because what you want to do is you want to shine on your differences and you want to be able to talk about your unique passion, your unique mission. We've also proven that storytelling done well is by far the biggest asset that you can use in an interview. And then, oh, by the way, if you are going for an interview, the other thing you really want to understand is that an interview you think is all about you, it's not. The biggest mistake you can do when you go into an interview is make it all about you. And by the way, introverts hate talking about themselves, which is why interviews go so poorly, because they go into an interview and they think they've got to brag on themselves and talk about their credibility. Yet the truth is the best way to be successful in a networking room and in an interview is to understand the organization that you're working for and the objectives that they have, and then make your experience relevant to them and talk about your care for helping organizations like them. And again, to do that, you have to think about your differences, your unique value, the specific marketplace that you love helping, like manufacturing, or the specific outcome that you love helping people get, like customer-centric velocity, and then make that relevant to the organizations you're going for interviews with. But truthfully, it doesn't just work for going for interviews. Getting promotions within current organizations, this also works tremendously well for as well, because you can share your difference and get stakeholder support within the organization for new initiatives or to create jobs within an organization you already work with. And we've seen that happen time and time again.
Matthew, that's beautiful. There's a whole lot here. Boy, let's chat about coming up with your unique point of view. And you said one way is that you kind of find the intersection. We've got an issue that you're into and an industry that you're serving. So not just customer service for anybody, but customer service for manufacturing companies or whomever. So could you give us some examples of additional articulations of a unique point of view? So we got the velocity architect was one example, and how we come to land upon what that articulation is.
Absolutely. So I would say that you need to focus on what you're absolutely passionate about. And, there's a quote by Jim Carrey that I think is great for those people that are worried that it's not going to work. He said, I learned a great deal from my father, but nothing more valuable than you can fail at what you don't want. So why not take a chance at what you love? And so I'm going to suggest to everybody when they're looking at this articulation to really think about what they're passionate about, what they really care about. So for somebody that really cares about manufacturing, go into the manufacturing space and build your messaging around that. If you're really passionate about technology, and then build it around something specific that you do in the technology space. I'll give you an example on that. So let's imagine you're a managed service provider. You work in an organization that you just love technology, and you help people fix all their computers and systems, and you're looking for a high-level CTO job. Well, maybe that what you really are passionate about doing is helping those companies obtain hypergrowth. So maybe you want to go and get a job at like an accounting organization that has a growth through acquisition mindset. Or a lot of accounting firms grow by buying other accounting firms and taking on their accounting, their books of business. Or a manufacturing business will say, okay, we've got all these products. Let's go and buy other manufacturing firms so that we can take on all their products, but also cross-sell all the products that we have. So growth through acquisition is really, really prevalent in those industries. So if I was a CFO and I was looking at those kind of industries, and I love working with hypergrowth companies, what I would say is the biggest problem that they have, though, and this happens a lot with organizations like that, is they buy a book of business, but then they've got to mix the technology. And what you'll find is there's licensing issues. There's, the organization is building like this fortress to make sure no one can hack in. And now they've got to build this hyper freeway to have all the data transferring between all these different offices. And it creates all these issues and conflicts. Well, if I was going to sell to myself as an employee, I might position myself as the acquisition lifeguard, because I know they want to grow through acquisition. And I know that technology is one of the biggest hassles that causes the organizations to almost drown in the minutiae of doing this, that causes CEOs to lose stakeholder support. So I might call myself the acquisition lifeguard in order to do that.
Okay, cool. So you've got that clarity such that you become the only logical choice for a select few. And then it's sort of like you have a moniker or a role or a title that goes there. So any tips on fine tuning that articulation? I think it's so funny. I remember one time I was talking to someone and he tried this and he said, you know what, we're a financial quarterback. You come to us and we're going to find the best fixed income guy, the best stock picker, the best whatever. And it was so funny because I watched so little sports. I didn't even understand the metaphor until much later. I was like, oh, as a quarterback, your role is to throw the football or to pass a portion of my portfolio onto a specialist in different respects, much like a quarterback might throw to different players on the field. I felt kind of like an idiot. So I guess that in a way that there's a risk there that if you use a word that your target audience doesn't have as much familiarity with, watch out for that. Any other pro tips on refining your moniker?
So there's a couple of answers to that. So firstly, you're talking to an Australian with about NFL terms, right? So I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I've lived in the United States for 10 years, but I will tell you, like, I'm still getting my head around the NFL. But yeah, I'm careful with the word quarterback. I mean, there are also, I've worked with people in Germany that have to be careful about the word capitalist because it used to be a socialist society, right? You've really got to think things through. But the thing that I would say is that if you use your functional skill in the unified message, then it's not a unified message, right? So if you are in data analytics and you call yourself the data wizard or the data guru, that's not going to work for you. And here's the science behind it. People's brains are focused on putting you into a box to disqualify you or to say, I need that. Like if you go, I'll give you an example. If I go into a networking room and I say I'm a sales trainer, people are looking at me like I'm one step above a scam artist. And if you're my ideal avatar, you're going to say, oh, I'm an introvert, that I'm never going to learn how to sell. And then I've got to like dance around that topic and explain how I've got a book that sold 100,000 copies, helping introverts succeed at sales. And I've got to convince you. I'm already starting from behind. That doesn't work. And here's the real key. It's the goal of a unified message is to do only this. Hi, my name's Matthew and I'm the rapid growth guy. And I say it just like I said I'm an accountant or an attorney. The goal is for you to say it in a way that it feels like it really encapsulates the value of what you do. It feels more authentic. Like for me, if I say I'm a sales trainer, it doesn't incorporate the value of what I provide really at all. It's just a functional skill. It's like me reading like a book like E-Myth and saying, oh, I'm an E-Myth person. it doesn't define you. Everyone's got unique talents, unique skills, unique past backgrounds that perfectly qualify them to provide a certain value, and more specifically, provide even more value to a specific demographic that they're passionate about. And because of that, what you want to do, and the only thing that you want to focus on, is making sure that your unified message does one of two things. Either gets them to say, how do you do that? Or what exactly is that? It's to make it vague enough, but also to provide interest. Now, if you're in a networking room and you've read my book, then you know to be interested before being interesting. So if you've been talking to them for 20 minutes and they say, oh my gosh, Matthew, I've been talking to you for the last 20 minutes. I haven't even asked you what it is that you do. And you say, oh, thanks for asking. I'm the rapid growth guy. Well, of course, they're going to want to ask what that is for two reasons. You're a puzzle they need to solve. And secondly, you gave them so much value by being interested in them. They want to give you value back by listening to you. So that when people then respond with what exactly is that, I can then say, well, one of the things that I love to see more than anything in the world, and go into my passion mission statement. Now, notice I didn't say, well, I do this and I do this, or I have this skill set, because again, networking isn't about talking about you. It's about expressing your passion and your mission for transforming the world in some way, shape, or form, which is intoxicating for people. So let's look at what a good unified message looks like. A good unified message has a word, and I'm always cognizant of using things like point guard, or you said quarterback, right? Because those are country specific and also sometimes gender specific, and also whether they're interested in the sport. It's complicated. Maven, architect, catalyst, all these kind of words are, again, above an 8th grade reading level, but truthfully, a lot of people that are trying to get higher level jobs, most of the people that you're talking to will understand what they are, but also expresses the value of what you provide in some way, shape, or form. And look, you don't need to hire me to do this. If you're a small business trying to come up with your version of the rapid growth guy, or a career executive, there is a template that I share at matthewpollard.com/growth. And that will give you a 5-step process, which will help you firstly determine the niche. And by the way, if you're a career professional and you think that you don't need to niche, you are 100% wrong, right? If you specialize in an industry, especially when you're first starting, you're always going to get paid a higher premium. You're always going to be able to get headhunted more effectively. And then over time, you can broaden that niche. But this will show you how to niche down as a career professional or as a small business owner and discover your niche of willing to buy clients or willing to buy or employers. And then it will show you how to create your unified message that will excite and inspire people to want to know more. And it really is about leaning in to your unique passions, your unique skill sets, your unique past customers or past employers, and saying, what was I really good at? What unique situations caused my employers or my past customers to sing my praises, to talk about me in a really positive way, and really looking at how to then articulate it. Now, once you've got that, you then need to know how to articulate your passion and mission in a way that gets people to be even more interested. And then you need to explain your value for the first time, the jargon of what you do, in a story. And if you can do all of that in an interview, in a networking event, or a podcast interview like this, then people will chase you from all over the world to hire you, or to be their consultant, or, their small business guru. You pick your profession, because people these days are actively looking for a message that they identify with. And for that, they'll pay a premium. The problem is that in today's overly cluttered world, most people still only push vanilla content, like their commoditized skill, or we do insurance, or I'm a marketing person and I've got 20 years of experience. And the truth is, if you can't be the clearest, you have to be the loudest.
Okay. Now, you mentioned building relationships with momentum partners and champion relationships. Any pro tips on identifying these people and making the approach?
Absolutely. And by the way, introverts listening to this, you should love the idea of this, because it means you're going to networking events and not looking to be transactional. What I find is a lot of extroverts do this, which is they'll go into a networking room and they're like, do you want to buy from me? What about you? What about you? Or are you looking for somebody to hire? What about you? What about you? A lot of extroverts don't like doing that either. They feel like it's transactional, but that then leads them to what I call aimless networking, which is where you don't kind of downplay yourself. Like somebody asks you what you do and you're like, oh, my day job is this. And I'm like, who wants to hire someone like that? So because of that, what I suggest is be more strategic about the networking events that you go to. So firstly, a lot of people that go networking, they don't do any research before they go. And that drives me crazy. It's like, if you're going to go to a networking event, especially if you're an introvert, which means it's a little bit more uncomfortable, I want it to be more like a bunch of pre-planned meetings than anything else. And so let's talk about how that actually works. I spoke at Intel a few years ago, and I delivered this presentation about how storytelling could be used from marketing and from a sales perspective. And one of these executives came up to me afterwards and he said, Matt, look, I've really loved my conversation with you. He said, I can't talk to anyone that's here as easily because I don't know anything about them. Like after your presentation, I had lots of things to talk about as an introvert. I had lots of questions I wanted to ask. He said, and I said, well, I'm confused. Like from what I know about Intel, you're classified as a newbie if you've been there for less than 20 years. I said, you're part of the top 100 senior leaders in sales and marketing. I would assume that you've done this before. He's like, oh, we do it every year, but every year I still awkwardly connect with people. And I'm like, isn't there like a guest list? Like, couldn't you connect with them beforehand, find out what, strategically, which people are part of internal groups or associations that you might be interested in, and then research what books they've posted about or what they're posting on their LinkedIn profiles. So if you're an executive that's listening to this, I don't want you to think that internally this isn't possible, right? You can these days search everything about a person. I remember I was trying to get sponsorship off Dell, and I found one of the senior leaders had an open Instagram profile, and all he did was publicly talk about how much he loved Peloton. Well, I'm a runner, and it was wintertime in Texas. It's freezing to run outside. So we were in a conversation and he said, how are you? And I said, oh, I'm great. I wish I could go running. The weather's terrible. And for the next 20 minutes, all he did was talk to me about Peloton and how amazing it was. He would have bought anything I said to him after that because I was so interested in what he was talking about. So the first thing is that all relationships come from pre-research so that you go into networking events with a little bit of your due diligence. And if you're going to an interview, by the way, if you know who's interviewing you, do some due diligence on the person, not just the company. But then when you go to a networking event, you've got to look that people really fit into three boxes. Who could be a potential client or who could potentially employ me? And that will get you a short-term win if you're a small business owner of money coming in the door. But momentum partners, they need to hear something different. They don't want to hear about your functional skill. They want to understand the difference you want to make in the world in a way that they can articulate to other people. And then they want to understand a simple way of sharing that. Now, a momentum partner is, and these are informal relationships. It's not a tit for tat thing, but if I believe in what you do, I might start recommending you to other people that I know that you would get value from connecting with, and you would for me. These are people that are around the same credibility level as me or lower. On the other hand, champion relationships are kind of like the senior leaders. For me, Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI, is an amazing champion for me, right? He's endorsed my books. He's had me speak at his conference. He's constantly talking about how great my work is. He's had me on his podcast twice. He and I are great friends, but truthfully, if he called me tomorrow and said, fly to Texas, I need you to pick up my dry cleaning, I would do it, right? These are the relationships you want to foster. So what you need to understand about these relationships is they don't want to know how much you know. They want to know how much you care. So I'll give you an example. If I'm at a networking event and I introduce myself as the rapid growth guy, well, if most people would say, I'm a marketer and I specialize in customer-centric engagements for large corporations or something horrible like that. And it's so it's so transactional. Where what I will do is I'll say I'm the rapid growth guy. And when people ask me what exactly is that, I will say, well, one of the things I love to see more than anything in the world is an amazing introverted service provider with enough talent, skill, and belief in themselves to start a business of their own. But what I find more often than not is they constantly get stuck in this endless hamster wheel of struggling to find interested people, trying to set themselves apart, trying to make the sale, feeling like people only care about one thing, price. Do you know anyone like that? Now, if I've done my research before, I've likely connected with these people in advance. There's familiar faces in the room. I've walked up to them to talk to them. I know they're like that. So because of that, they'll respond in the affirmative. And then when they say, well, yeah, absolutely, I'm like that. And I'll say, well, I'm on a mission to help introverts like yourself realize you're not a second-class citizen. Your path to success is just different to that of an extrovert. And rapid growth really comes down to 3 steps outside the scope of your functional skill, which you're usually amazing at. And if you just focus on these 3 steps, you really can build a rapid growth business that revolves around you, your family, and your life, not the other way around. And because of that, momentum partners and champions will go, wow, I want to introduce you to so-and-so, or have you thought about joining this association, or there's this support group or this initiative that we're having. I want to have you as part of it, because people are so used to getting so bored with these mundane introductions of what you do. And when they hear passion, I love to see this, I hate to see this, and I'm on a mission to do this for the first time, it is intoxicating, and they will open up their Rolodex for you. And depending on whether they're a momentum partner, i.e. the same level or below as you, or a champion, a higher level, the doors that they will open will be compelling. And if especially you've been interested before interesting and offering people in your Rolodex, offering to just give them value in any way, shape, or form that you can beforehand, you will find that all of the doors will open for you, and you'll create relationships like you've never seen before.
All right. Well, Matthew, tell me anything else you want to make sure to mention before we hear about some of your favorite things.
Firstly, there's nothing wrong with being an introvert. But secondly, it's not something you can change. Introversion is just this, where you draw your energy from. That's it. It doesn't mean you can't engage in small talk. It does mean the strategies for small talk are different. And if you try to copy extroverts, my gosh, it's going to be a really uncomfortable, inauthentic feeling that you'll have afterwards. And that's why a lot of us ruminate afterwards. But what I want you to know if you're an introvert is, firstly, you're not a second-class citizen. Your path to success is just different.
Okay. Now, could you share with us a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
My favorite quote is that we can change who we are at every moment. We get a second chance every second. And I really loved the concept of that, because I feel like we all have these defining stories that say, well, we can't do that because of this, or it's always been this way. And I feel that saying that, no, I get a second chance every second means that I can change my beliefs, my values, the stories that I tell myself, in the direction that I'm going.
All right. And a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
There's a Stanford study that says when we tell a story, it activates the reticular activating system of the brain, which means that the brain between the storyteller and the story receiver actually synchronize. It creates artificial rapport, which we introverts can create into deeper rapport.
All right. And a favorite book?
I really loved Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I felt like that was a really great book for all people, whether they're entrepreneurs or career professionals. I feel like it's a really great book for everybody.
All right. And a favorite tool, something you use to be awesome at your job?
I actually love, at the moment, ChatGPT. Obviously, it's providing a ton of value for a lot of different things at the moment.
Okay. And a favorite habit?
So for me, I think planning is my favorite habit. And I think, for introverts, I think that planning is absolutely essential, because otherwise you go into a sale and you're uncomfortable. For me, any day that I feel like I've got anxiety or stress, it means that I'm moving away from my goals. So I will reread over my goals.
Okay. And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to connect and resonate with folks? They tweet it, they Kindle book, highlight it, etc. They say, Matthew, that was so brilliant and touching when you said this thing.
The words, introverts are not second-class citizens. Our path to success is just different to that of an extrovert. And then you say right after that, and I am an introvert, I should know, and then tell your personal story. My bet is you will find out that many of your bosses are also introverted, so it will help you move up the ladder, but also will inspire so many people below you to believe they can.
All right. And if folks want to learn more or get in touch, where would you point them?
Go to matthewpollard.com/growth, download that template and create that unified message and discover your niche of willing to buy clients, or discover your niche of employer and create a unified message. My books are a great resource. Just go to theintrovertsedge.com, download the first chapter, and I literally help you believe that you can sell and then give you the exact process.
All right. Thank you, Matthew. This has been a treat. I wish you much fun networking.
It was my absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
I think Matthew just really nails it in terms of having that unique point of view. It differentiates you and gets you much more interesting and potentially much more highly paid. He's like, oh, you are exactly the person that I have been looking for. Not just a marketing guy, but somebody who specializes in the marketing of high growth snack companies. you get the idea. It's like, oh, wow, that is exactly what we're after. And when you've got exactly what they're after, that grabs attention and commands higher salaries and goodness. So much wisdom from Matthew. Again, the show notes, the transcript, the links to items that we've referenced are found at awesomeatyourjob.com/EP928. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.
Thanks for listening. To get the most out of the show, we recommend 2 key things. First, check out the extra resources at awesomeatyourjob.com. You can find this episode's transcript and links, as well as the perfect episode for your situation. You can search the full text transcripts of hundreds of episodes or explore episodes tagged by topic and competency covered. Second, subscribe to the podcast and get future episodes automatically. You can subscribe by telling Siri and several other smartphones and speakers, subscribe to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast, or by tapping subscribe in your podcast player of choice. If you'd like some extra help figuring out podcasts and how subscriptions work, visit awesomeatyourjob.com/subscribe for guidance. Hope to catch you on the next episode of How to Be Awesome at Your Job.